Hello everyone, welcome to this End Times Watcher session. My name is Kyle and I am just an End Times Watcher. I will be sharing biblical perspectives of events pertaining to end times. In the last three sessions, I covered secular matters that are of concern to us, about 5G, about potential disease X, and what to expect in the next 12 months. So what do we do? What are the practical actions that we can take? How do we know that we are doing the right thing? I believe this is the perfect time to talk about taking the right steps that God wants us to take. I call it follow the cloud. During Moses' days, when he was leading the nation of Israel out of Egypt and into the promised land, they followed the cloud through the wilderness. Moses may be leading them, but God was a cloud that all of them can see and follow. Numbers 9:17 says, whenever the cloud lifted from above the tent, the Israelites set out. Wherever the cloud settled, the Israelites encamped. Let's look further and see what this means. The passage that follows describes it in more details. First, we shall look at when the Israelites break camp and set out. The definitive sign is whenever the cloud lifted up. But not just that, it was in the morning. So every morning they wake up, get out of their tent and look at the tabernacle. If the cloud is lifted up, then it is time to go. Next, we focus on when the Israelites sat down and encamped. Wherever the cloud settled. It is not whenever. Whenever talks about time that is for setting off. It is wherever. It could be in a dry desert or a place filled with thorns and thistles. As long as the cloud settles, it is time to take out the sticks and set up tents. How long do they stay each time they encamp? The Bible tells us that they will not set off and will remain in camp until the clouds lifts up and move. As long as the clouds do not move, they will not move. The Israelites reached a point that they just follow. Sometimes it is just for one night. Ready or not, they will set off the next morning if needed. Sometimes they were reluctant, but they still follow. They were probably tired after a long day's journey. Their aching bones can do with a few more days' rest. At other times, the cloud remained for another day, or weeks, or months, or years. They have no idea how long. They just learn to follow the Lord's command without question. Without question? Really? We will see that it was not that smooth, but they learned to obey. So how did they learn to be so obedient? Let's do a Bible study through the next 4 books of Moses. The first mention of the pillar of cloud was in Exodus 13. They just left Egypt and God led them by a pillar of cloud in the day and a pillar of fire at night. So either day or night, they can see the manifestation of God in front of them. Isn't this great? If we can see God in such a tangible fashion, we will follow Him without question. Or will we? I'll leave you to think about this. Let's move on. As they journey, God set them up. He got Moses to lead them to a dead end. The Red Sea blocked their path forward, and he enticed the Egyptians to chase after them. If you are in that situation, will you still remember God? The Israelites, they forgot, and they failed the faith test. Even after God saved them through the Red Sea crossing, they continued to forget their God that led them as a pillar of cloud. God calls His chosen a stiff-necked people. The second time they lost their faith was shortly after the Red Sea crossing. They complained because the water at Marah was bitter. And then shortly after, they complained that they have no food. First it was water, then it was food. I sincerely hope that in the coming Black Horse famine, we will not be like them. God not only gave them quail to eat, He also gave them bread from heaven for the first time, manna. But the instructions were to collect only enough for the day. But some were worried that they would go hungry the next day. Again, they did not have enough faith. And for the 6th day, they were told to collect double to keep enough for the next day. Again, they disobeyed and went up looking on the 7th day. It is like they were first not to go left, but they went left. Then they were told not to go right, but they went right. So either left or right, they chose not to listen. No wonder God's patience was beginning to wear thin. At Rephidim, it was water again. And then at Mount Sinai, the people traded their faith for a golden calf. You know the story. This was the first time God called his people a stiff-necked people. This is also the first time God punishes his people for disobedience. And from here on, God punishes every disobedience. As we move to Leviticus, the people continued to disobey. Aaron's two older sons offered their own concoctions and were consumed by God's fire. Later, a half-Israelite blasphemed God, and God ordered him stoned to death outside the camp. We move on to Numbers, and it was here that they obediently followed the cloud. However, their complaints did not end, and God continued to punish them. Isn't this like us punishing our kids until they learn right from wrong? At Tabira, the people complained about hardship. I can imagine how tough it was, setting up camp only to tear it down quickly the next day. But God disciplined them by burning those at the outskirts of the camp. I guess these are the laggers who happen to complain the loudest. At Kibroth Hattaavah, they got sick of manna and wanted to eat meat. God gave them quail again, but this time they don't get to eat it as the plague came down. Later, Miriam and Aaron complained about Moses choosing to pick on his Cushite wife. God dealt with Miriam with leprosy. She is Moses' elder sis and the prophetess of the people of Israel. They waited 7 days for her to heal, and yet through this they have not yet learned. For in the next chapter, 10 of the 12 spies did not have faith to claim the promised land. They influenced the people from going forth. God struck them dead. But on the next day, these stiff-necked people now wanted to take the land, despite being told not to go as God is not with them. So God used the Amalekites to strike them down. From this incident, the 40 years of wandering began. Over the next 40 years, Korah, Dathan, and Abiram rebelled. They think that as Levites they can take over from Moses. The earth swallowed the gang up, 250 of them. But the next day, the people complained that Moses was too heavy-handed. This time, the plague that descended could have wiped out the entire nation. Aaron has to run through the camp with incense to intercede for them. The Bible says that Aaron stood between the living and the dead. Soon after, God had to show who he selected as leader by making Aaron's staff bud and grow almonds. But the complaints continued at Meribah, and it continued to a point that God sent poisonous snakes to bite them. This was the last recorded complaint. The Israelites started to enter the promised land. After the book of Numbers is Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy chapters 1 and 2 summarizes the 40 years through the desert. It also summarizes their unfaithfulness. As I read through these two chapters again, I cannot help but ask, why do they keep forgetting who God is? Despite his punishments, why aren't they afraid? It is like they're testing God's bottom line. Thank God, they eventually learn to follow the cloud. But what about us? Must we go through what they went through before we learn to follow the cloud? I sincerely hope that through their story, we learn to be obedient faster. But before we jump in and follow our intuition or gut feel, please pray first. And only after you hear, move. Following the cloud is following God. If we did not pray for God's guidance, then we are not following the cloud. It will be like the people who try to enter the promised land on their own. My experience in following the cloud is take one step at a time. Learn to trust God for that step. Learn not to question where that step will ultimately take you. The destination is not important. All that counts is the willingness to take that step. Just like the Israelites, every morning we have to see if the cloud is going to move. It is a step of faith. Back in the 1990s, I was quite well settled in Canada and was serving in a local church there. But I heard from God that it was time to return back to Singapore. We prayed and I was offered a position from my ex-company. In the cell meeting, I announced that we are returning back to Singapore. And to make it worse, we said we got confirmation from God. Of course, my spiritual mentor and cell leader find it hard to accept. I did not consult him and I was using God's name. In the past months, we were partnering quite well. My wife and I will bring people to church, and his wife and him will share Jesus' love. People were saved. But he is a man of God. He prayed and asked God for a sign. He was the head of a post office branch in the city, and shortly after he prayed, he saw a foreign item on the table. It was a small item, but it caught his eye. It turned out to be a pack of Singapore stamps, probably given to them in a visit by the Singapore team. My mentor passed that pack of stamps to me and blessed our return to Singapore. Then, around 2000, I again heard God's call to leave my church. I was serving as a cell group leader, but the call was quite strong, and my wife confirmed it as well. My zone supervisor and zone pastor paid us a visit and asked us why. Again, it came too sudden and it was hard for them to take. That was the first time I used the phrase, follow the cloud. Recently, I hear the call to leave Singapore. I can give you all kinds of reasons why I am uprooting to settle in another country. But at the end of it, I hear God and I heed His call. My wife and I choose to follow the cloud. Let's revisit the Red Sea crossing again. The cloud turned into a pillar of fire by night. There is light in the darkness. God leads us whether in the day or night. The cloud moved from leading in the front to the back to guard them from the attack of the Egyptians. The cloud not only leads us, God will protect us in our dangerous journey. Yes, it is dangerous. No one ever said that it will be easy. And thirdly, let's not fail the test that God set before us. The Israelites rather served the Egyptians than to die in the desert. When Antichrist comes, will you rather take his mark and serve him than to have your life cut short? In the next session, I will touch on current affairs again. There are many people talking about the outcome of the 77th World Health Assembly, WHA. Hence, I decided to read the documents for myself. I was preparing for this as session number 8, but suddenly I heard in my heart that I must follow the cloud first. And it's not necessarily bad, for this delay allows more articles from others to come out, and I can read them for myself and see if I have missed out something important. Till then, this is Kyle. See you in the next session. If you find this video beneficial, please click the like icon. YouTube algorithm automatically recommends it to others if there are higher like counts. You can also subscribe to my channel so that you can see my past and future videos. Finally, please forward and share with your friends so that they too can benefit. Thank you and God bless.